I wonder how many times I could forgive someone when they sin against me. I'm guessing you've been hurt, or maybe are hurting right now because somebody sinned against you. Maybe it's a sin that they've committed again and again and again. How many times should we forgive them? The Apostle Peter actually asked that question of Jesus. You see, Jesus had taught that if your brother sins against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times comes back and says, "I'm sorry," he said to forgive him. And so Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me?" And this next part is so Peter. Like, if you ask a question and you want an answer, you actually wait for it. But if you ask a question and you want the other person to know you know the answer, you answer it right away. And so Peter says, up to 7 times? He was maybe thinking he was being generous, kind of like, hey, I was listening. But Jesus says, no, not 7 times, but 77 times. You see, the rabbis in the Talmud taught at that time that God forgave up to 3 times. And even though they never said it this way, I think people just kind of assumed that that meant that we should forgive each other up to 3 times. And so, like I said, Peter probably thought he was being generous by saying 7 times. But God wanted to correct that misconception, not only about how often we should forgive each other, but also about how God forgives us. And so he told a parable. And you're probably familiar with it. In fact, I would encourage you today to look up Matthew chapter 18 and read this parable. It's about a man who owed a king an unpayable debt, and his life was over if he couldn't pay it. You and I are the man, and God is the king. And do you know what the king did with that debt? He forgave the man the whole debt, and he let him go. And so the answer to the question of how often should we forgive each other is the same answer as how often does God forgive us? It's limitless. So the next time you struggle to forgive someone when they sin against you, remember the cross and remember the even greater debt that God has forgiven you. And then be comforted by the fact that when you sin and you repent, God wraps you up in his arms, he kisses you, and he forgives you again and again and again until the day that we'll be with him in heaven. Let that motivate you to forgive others again and again and again. Would you like these videos sent to your inbox? Just click the link and sign up for free. We'll see you tomorrow.